The studio lights were bright, but the tension was brighter. Rachel Maddow, sharp-eyed and unsparing, leaned forward on MSNBC's primetime desk. The chyron blazed. Surveillance or suppression? A look at the new Rubio bill. She didn't mince words. If you support freedom, how do you explain Marco Rubio pushing for expanded federal surveillance? She said. You can't preach liberty and vote for digital chains. The camera cut close, her voice icy, deliberate. Marco Rubio is a hypocrite, period. Gasps echoed across living rooms. On social media, clips exploded. Within 20 minutes, Jars Rubio hypocrite and digital prison were trending. Young voters were furious. Privacy advocates shared the video like wildfire. But deep inside the Senate press wing, something stirred. Marco Rubio had just stepped off the floor. He watched the clip on his phone in silence. Then he whispered, "She wants to play games with memory? Okay." He turned to his aide. "Pull everything. Floor speeches, Senate records, even Maddow's Patriot Act takes. We're not going silent. Not this time." The battle line was drawn. What neither of them knew was that this face-off would not only rewrite headlines, it would unearth wounds America thought it had buried forever. Rubio walked into the press room not with fire, but with history. "I won't defend myself with tweets," he said into the mic. "I'll defend myself with truth." He lifted a folder and laid it flat. Inside were yellowing documents stamped declassified, notes in his own handwriting from 2013, his Senate speech on the Snowden leaks, a letter to a grieving mother after her activist son was mistakenly surveilled. Then came the bombshell, a 2014 MSNBC clip, Rachel Maddow's voice. "In times of terror, the Patriot Act has been a tool, albeit imperfect, to protect us." The room froze. Reporters looked around. Someone whispered, "No way." Rubio continued. "She called me a hypocrite for wanting security safeguards, but she stood right here defending the same framework when it was politically convenient." Screens lit up again. This wasn't a rebuttal. It was a counterstrike. But the pain in Rubio's voice wasn't rage. It was something else. "I've sat with families who lost sons to terrorists we failed to catch because we were too afraid to act." Then he paused. "But I've also sat with families destroyed by false surveillance." That line cracked the air. This wasn't about Maddow anymore. It was about wounds the system never healed. While America boiled over the Maddow-Rubio feud, a letter surfaced from across the ocean. It came from Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. And it bore the signature of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The letter was quiet, but powerful. Traoré, often painted in the West as defiant, wrote, "In Burkina Faso, we've suffered both from terror and the misuse of surveillance. I do not write to take sides, but to remind the world, when truth dies in the noise, freedom dies next." The letter was addressed not to Maddow, not to Rubio, but to the American people. And it ended with a chilling plea. If you silence your memory, who will protect your tomorrow? CNN aired it. So did Fox. Even Maddow quoted it with narrowed eyes. Traoré's words haunt me. Suddenly, the Rubio-Maddow war wasn't just American, it was global, and the questions deepened. What did Rubio do in 2013 that still hurts him? Why was Maddow once a defender of surveillance? And what did Traoré know that neither of them had said yet? In living rooms, in classrooms, in quiet cafes, the conversations grew louder. Because this was no longer about just politics. This was about truth and trauma. 3 days after the press briefing, Rubio visited a small church in Virginia. Off the cameras, off the record. But someone filmed anyway. He met a woman named Alma Rivera, who clutched a framed photo of her son, Elijah, a straight-A student, a coder, a dreamer. Elijah was mistakenly flagged by a now-defunct surveillance program in 2016. His innocent online chats about encryption and democracy had triggered suspicion. FBI agents raided his home at dawn. They put him on a watch list. He couldn't get scholarships. Jobs ghosted him. He took his own life at 21, Alma whispered, voice shaking. Rubio sat with her. No press, no staffers, just silence. I never knew, he said. She looked him in the eye. That's the problem. None of you did. The video surfaced online anyway, not leaked by Rubio, but by Elijah's younger sister. If this fight is real, she wrote, make sure Elijah didn't die for nothing. That night, Rubio didn't sleep. Because behind every vote, every headline, every Maddow clash was a face, a mother, a child, and a nation asking, how many more Elijahs before we learn? Rachel Maddow wasn't known for losing her composure. But during a commercial break on Tuesday night, MSNBC staff saw something rare. Rachel pacing, voice trembling, holding an old folder. Her producer, Lila, had just handed it to her. Inside were documents from 2009, handwritten notes, emails, her own private advocacy for the renewal of key Patriot Act provisions after an attempted NYC bombing. She slammed it shut. They're going to find this. Every word. Lila hesitated. Rachel, were you wrong? The anchor froze. No, she whispered. But I didn't know how far it would go. I never wanted kids flagged, families ruined. She sat down, put her head in her hands. I thought I was helping. Then the director called. We're live in 10. She straightened her jacket, composed her face, but something behind her eyes cracked. That night, she opened her show quieter than usual. We all think we're the hero in our story, she began. But what happens when the truth proves we might have been the villain for a while? No fireworks, no attacks, just honesty. And across America, thousands of viewers, left, right, center, leaned forward. Because even giants bleed, and even the most trusted voices carry ghosts. Exactly 1 week after the first letter, another message from Captain Ibrahim Traoré reached Washington. This time it wasn't typed, it was filmed. The clip began with Traoré standing beside a dusty memorial wall in Burkina Faso, names carved into stone, some names burned out by sun and time. These were journalists, students, mothers. Many died without trial. Some by mistake, he said. Then he looked straight into the lens. Surveillance without conscience is not security. It's silence. He paused. But the West has a choice, not between Rubio and Maddow, but between memory and denial. Traoré's eyes softened. Senator Rubio, you say you care. Then show us how America fixes what it breaks. Ms. Maddow, you say you seek truth. Then confess where you misstepped, and teach others not to repeat it. The video ended with a single line that tore through every screen. When freedom is betrayed by those who swear to protect it, only the wounded can tell the real story. That night, a 19-year-old girl named Tara posted her reaction on TikTok, tears running down her cheeks. I didn't think a soldier from Africa would make me cry about my own country's truth. But he did, and this was only the beginning. The MSNBC team had already wrapped the night's broadcast. Cameras were off, graphics gone. Rachel stayed in her chair. Her producer, Lila, whispered, "Want me to lock the studio?" Rachel shook her head, and then, like someone ripping open a sealed wound, she started to speak. Not to the cameras, but to the empty room, to herself. In 2010, I got an anonymous call, she said aloud, eyes distant. A whistleblower. Told me there was an internal blacklist. Kids, teachers, activists, all flagged with no oversight. She stared at the ceiling. I never ran the story. I was scared. I told myself the country needed unity, not more chaos. Her voice cracked. but I failed them. Lila stood frozen in the doorway, recording with her phone, secretly, quietly. Not to expose her boss, but to preserve what she feared the world might never hear. Rachel stood up, wiped her face, and whispered, "Maybe Rubio's not the only one who has to answer for ghosts." The next morning, Lila debated uploading it, but she didn't, because sometimes the most powerful confessions are the ones the world isn't ready to hear. Yet. Rubio had always kept one file off the record, even from his aides. It was labeled 2013 Miguel G. Inside, hand-drawn maps, timelines, a faded newspaper clipping, a young boy with brown skin, thick glasses, and a wide smile. Miguel was 9 when a terror raid mistakenly took his father. ICE, Homeland, FBI, no one ever claimed responsibility. His mother couldn't afford a lawyer. They were deported. Rubio met Miguel in 2013 at a refugee shelter in Panama during a diplomatic mission. The boy asked him a single question. Did America think we were bad people because we were poor? Rubio never forgot it. After Snowden's leaks, Rubio had quietly authored a reform bill, buried deep in committee, that would have limited domestic surveillance and protected flagged immigrants from automatic deportation. It failed. No coverage, no Maddow segment, no tweet storm, just failure. And the guilt stayed. Now, with Maddow calling him a hypocrite and the nation watching, Rubio pulled out that file. If they want receipts, he said, they'll get every last one. But what he didn't expect was who would bring Miguel's name back into the light. It wouldn't be him. It would be Ibrahim Traoré. In a small Burkinabe village, a film crew followed Traoré as part of a global documentary on leadership in post-colonial Africa. The director asked, "Who taught you to care about American politics?" Traoré smiled faintly, then walked to a rooftop, wind blowing, sunset glowing behind him. In 2014, I met a boy from Honduras. His name was Miguel. He was 10, alone, thin, but brilliant. He paused. He taught me basic encryption, on a phone held together with rubber bands. The cameraman zoomed in. He told me, "America threw my father away because a computer said he was bad. I'm learning to beat the computer." Traoré turned to the camera. I never forgot him. Later that night, that footage aired in Paris, then Nairobi, then Atlanta. Someone tagged Rubio in the clip. Within hours, Rubio responded, "I remember Miguel. He's why I never stopped trying." The internet exploded. 2 men, 2 continents, 1 forgotten boy. Miguel trended at #1, and in the hearts of millions, the fight for truth suddenly wasn't just about policy. It was about a child, a name, a promise the world had once broken, and might, just maybe, now try to keep. Outside the Capitol, a small vigil began. Just 15 people at first. Candles, handmade signs, photos of loved ones. But by midnight it grew to hundreds. They weren't protesting Maddow. They weren't protesting Rubio. They were demanding accountability from everyone. One sign read, "I was 12 when the government labeled my dad a risk. He was a janitor." Another simply said, "Miguel still matters." News cameras rolled, but they couldn't capture what happened at 2:03 a.m. An elderly woman in a wheelchair rolled up with oxygen tubes. On her lap was a framed photo of her son, Jamal, a veteran wrongly surveilled and denied benefits after being misidentified by an algorithm. She spoke softly, into a crackling megaphone. "They say data protects us, but data took my son." Silence. Then weeping. From strangers. Someone recorded it. The clip hit 7 million views in 4 hours. Even Maddow tweeted, "We've started something. It's bigger than Rubio, bigger than me." For the first time in years, America wasn't arguing. It was listening. And somewhere, deep inside both Rubio's and Maddow's teams, a painful question grew. What if they aren't the story anymore? The phone buzzed as Rachel packed her things. It was her mother. They hadn't spoken in weeks, not since the storm began. "Sweetheart," her mother said gently, "I watched last night's show. I cried." Rachel blinked hard. She hadn't cried in years. "When you talked about the whistleblower you ignored." "I remembered something." Rachel sat down. "You were 16, her mother said, voice trembling. "You helped that undocumented girl in your school. You fought for her when they tried to deport her." Rachel closed her eyes. The memory came flooding back. The girl's name was Celia. They'd lost touch. Her mother continued, "You were so brave back then, but you're braver now." Rachel broke, not on air, not in front of millions, but quietly, alone, with the voice that raised her. "I think I forgot who I was, Mom," she whispered. Her mom replied, "No, you remembered. That's all that matters." The next night, Rachel opened her show without makeup. No intro music, just a black screen and the words, "Tonight I won't speak as an anchor. I'll speak as a daughter, and as a woman who got it wrong." What followed would become the most shared Maddow segment in history, because confession, real, unpolished, changes everything. 2 days later, Marco Rubio quietly boarded a red-eye flight to Burkina Faso. No press, no entourage. He arrived at the same memorial wall where Traoré had filmed his message. Traoré was waiting. The two men shook hands. No speeches, just silence. Together, they placed flowers at the wall. Then Traoré handed Rubio a folded paper, a letter from Miguel written years ago. It had traveled across borders, hands, and time. Rubio unfolded it. Inside, "If you're reading this, maybe you didn't forget me. If you still care, don't let others fall like my father." Tears welled in Rubio's eyes. He didn't speak. Instead, he knelt and added Miguel's name, by hand, to a small plaque for the unnamed. Later that night, a young local journalist posted a photo. Rubio, kneeling, Traoré standing beside him, sunlight breaking behind them. The caption read, "Two men, one mission, memory." The image went viral, not because of politics, but because of humility. In a divided world, it showed something rare. Two powerful men, choosing to kneel for the forgotten, and millions watching, weeping, finally understood. This wasn't about left or right anymore. It was about never forgetting again. Back in Washington, deep inside the National Archives, a quiet intern named Rhea Patel had been watching the Maddow-Rubio drama unfold with growing discomfort. She was 24, Indian American, a cybersecurity grad student. She'd lost her uncle, a peaceful activist, to wrongful surveillance in 2007. No trial, just vanished from their lives. Her family never got answers. Rhea spent her lunch hours combing declassified files, hoping for a name, a trace, a whisper of what happened. Then, one afternoon, in a poorly labeled box from the DHS Oversight Committee, she found it. Patel, Mukesh, Class 3 alert, false flag error. A single line, a clerical mistake. Her uncle had been flagged by a glitch in a test algorithm. Rhea collapsed to the floor. She cried so hard she couldn't breathe. But when she stood up, she took the file to the Senate Intelligence Committee office. Alone, uninvited. "I don't care who you think you're protecting," she told the front desk. "This is truth, and it belongs to the people." The footage of her confrontation leaked, and within 48 hours, Rhea Patel became a national name. Because sometimes, it takes a quiet voice in a dark room to shine the brightest light. The clip was just 45 seconds. It started in a small courtyard in Ouagadougou. Traoré stood beside a teenager, thin, nervous, holding a faded photo. Miguel. He'd been found by a volunteer aid group, living under a tarp in Mali, still coding, still dreaming. He doesn't trust governments, the aid worker said, but he asked if the man with the tie ever remembered him. Rubio arrived that afternoon, hands shaking. Miguel stood still, eyes unsure. Rubio approached slowly. No cameras, no podium. He knelt, again, and said one thing. "You didn't deserve what we did to you, and I will carry that pain until my last breath." Miguel stared for a moment, then stepped forward and hugged him. No music, no applause, just a boy forgiving the country that forgot him. The clip hit 52 million views in 24 hours. Miguel found FARC forgiveness lives. Rubio Traore trended worldwide. Maddow opened her show that night with just one sentence. "Tonight, America found its soul in a boy we once erased." And millions cried, not just tears of sorrow, but tears of hope. Because if Miguel could forgive, maybe, just maybe, America could too. The sun was just setting when Rachel Maddow walked into her studio for what she called her final solo broadcast. She wore no makeup. Her voice was soft. She began not with politics, but with Celia. She was undocumented, my best friend in high school, and I watched the system swallow her. She pulled out a stack of letters. These are from viewers, survivors, parents, veterans, interns, and children. One was from a boy named Jonah. "Ms. Maddow, I'm 10. My dad is in jail for something his phone said. Can you help him?" Rachel broke. Live. Tears ran down her face as she held the letter close. "I spent years exposing what others tried to hide, but I also ignored what I should have screamed about." She looked into the camera, voice shaking. "To every Elijah, every Miguel, every Jamal, I am so sorry." And then she paused. "This isn't a resignation. This is a rebirth. I'm not walking away from truth. I'm walking toward it." That night, news anchors across the world paused in silence for her final words. Because for the first time in decades, a journalist didn't just report history, she became it. The House chamber had never been this full. Cameras were rolling. Families of surveillance victims filled the gallery. Veterans, immigrants, coders, students, journalists. Marco Rubio stood at the podium. Beside him, Rachel Maddow. What brought them together was a proposed bipartisan bill, the Liberty Memory Act, surveillance reform grounded in ethics, oversight, and healing. Rubio's voice was calm but cracked. "This bill is not just paper. It is Miguel's name, Elijah's dignity, Jamal's truth, Celia's hope." Rachel stepped forward next. She didn't bring notes. "When the media forgets the pain behind policy, we fail," she said. "Today I make a promise, not just to inform, but to remember." The chamber was still. A single tear ran down Alma Rivera's face. Then slowly, lawmakers stood, one by one, left and right, standing ovation. Even the speaker, who had resisted the bill for weeks, clapped, slowly, then firmly. Traore watched from a live feed in Burkina Faso, his eyes closed in prayer. "They heard," he whispered. "They finally heard." And in that moment, no sides, no parties, no shouting, just America, remembering itself. Weeks later, as the Liberty Memory Act moved to a vote, something unexpected happened. Thousands of letters poured into the Capitol, from prison cells, from foster homes, from rural towns and refugee camps. Each letter told a name, a moment, a wound. Ria Patel volunteered to read and sort them. One letter stopped her breath. It was from Jonah, the 10-year-old boy who'd written Maddow. "Dear Ms. Maddow, my dad is coming home. They said it was a mistake. Thank you. I still sleep with the lights on, but I don't cry as much." Inside was a drawing. Stick figures, one in glasses, labeled Ms. Maddow. One with a tie, Mr. Rubio. One with a cape, Captain Traore. And in the middle, Jonah holding a sign. "Truth wins." Ria put the letter on the Capitol steps. It became a symbol, A nation obsessed with noise was now listening to its quietest voices, and when the bill passed with a historic 91-9 vote, the rotunda erupted, not in cheers, but in tears. For the first time in years, the system didn't just work, it healed. 6 months later, the memorial wall in Burkina Faso had grown. More names, more light. Marco Rubio returned. This time not with documents, but with Jonah and Alma Rivera. Maddow joined, quietly holding flowers. Miguel stood beside Traoré, now a volunteer teacher, teaching cybersecurity to children under a mango tree nearby. They gathered at sunset. No microphones, no camera crews, just candles. Each person lit one. One for Miguel's father, one for Elijah, one for Mukesh, one for Jamal, one for Celia, one for every child caught in the gears of a system that forgot their names. Rachel turned to Rubio. "We didn't fix everything," she whispered. He nodded. "But we remembered." Traoré raised his candle and said softly, "Let this flame be our vow, that the forgotten will never be silent again." As night fell, the wind didn't blow them out. The candles stayed lit, and as millions watched the final clip, raw, tear-filled, human, they didn't just like the video. They felt it. They shared it. They changed. If this story touched your heart, if you cried for Miguel, for Elijah, for Jonah, if you believe truth still matters, please like this video. Comment the name of someone who should never be forgotten. Subscribe so these stories never stay silent again. This isn't just a channel, it's a movement, and it begins with you. Let's keep the candles burning. Together. Truth wins. Miguel matters. Never forget. Subscribe for change.